Being born in 1982, I pretty much missed the 8-bit computer era, if we want to call it an era. My father had a Commodore 64 that he showed me how to load games on. That would be probably around 1988 when I was 6 years old. And I really didn't use it for anything else. I certainly didn't use it that often. I pretty much played most of my games on a Nintendo Entertainment System. Fast forward a handful of years, it's 1993, and I'm interested in computers again. I went with one of my friends after school to his house, and I saw him play a game on a computer called Heroes Quest by a little game company called Sierra Online. Of course, Heroes Quest was actually Quest for Glory, but it was one of the first games that I saw that I was interested in. And I kept asking for a computer, and he eventually just gave me a box of parts, a monitor, a case, and said, if you want a computer, build one. Ever since then, I've built my own computers. I have never purchased a pre-built computer, unless it was in like a pawn shop or a flea market, thrift store. I did win a Dell in 1998 when I was working on the Dell campaign with Client Logic. But otherwise, built my own computers. Somebody asked me recently if they could be shown how to set up 86 box to run DOS games. This is actually a pretty young kid, actually, in one of the Discord servers that I hang out at. He's interested enough to learn as much as he can, and he thinks that he can accomplish that over something like DOSBox. He already knows how to use DOSBox fairly well, but he's interested in more of how older computers worked, so I'm going to throw this video together just for that. What we're going to build today in 86 box is the computer that I had in 1993. We're going to install DOS, we're going to install drivers for sound, CD-ROM, mouse. We'll probably even get into Windows 3.1, or we'll make that the next video. Depends on how long this one goes. In the description below is going to be links to all the floppy images that I'm using. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Now again, this computer is going to resemble very much the computer that I had in 1993. So that's going to be why I pick certain parts and configure the machine the way I do. Not only is it just for the feel of authenticity and what I had at the time, but also for compatibility. I've noticed that when hard drives are too fast for older games, they don't want to work properly. If clock speeds are too high, the games run way too fast or they just break down completely. So that'll explain why I'm picking each part that I pick. As I go through the setup, I'll give a little bit of an explanation as to why I'm selecting the different parts and setting them up the way that I have. Now this computer I also held on to up until 1998 when I won that Dell. I pretty much did not use Windows 95. Instead, I ended up jumping right into Windows 98 when it was available. So most of my experience starts with just Windows 3.1. And when I won that computer, I pretty much cannibalized my old computer to go into the new one. But, yeah. So, I won't be going over how to install 86 box. I'm going to leave that up to you, the viewer. I'm on Linux, so it's going to be not one-to-one comparison on your system, most likely people are still using Windows primarily, so you're just going to have to go to 86box.net and go through the documentation on how to get your version set up. The version of 86box I'm using is the most recent successful build. Let me double check. Build 6669. I compiled that a couple days ago, I think. So yeah, let's get to it. Now when you run 86box for the first time, it's going to create a configuration for an 8088 computer. So what you're going to want to do, go up to the settings icon at the top. And like I said, this computer came from 1993. And the parts that I can remember is that it was a socket 168. And the closest that I could remember is this AMD 486 board. It had a DX processor at 25 megahertz. And I only had, at the time, 8 megabytes of RAM. Now, the motherboard or machine type that I'm picking is the closest that I can get. The motherboard that I had, I do remember, came out of a computer, an AST. And that motherboard had a lot of things on it, like the graphics. It had integrated graphics. And the one thing it didn't have was an integrated IDE controller. So if you're following along, these are what you want to pick: the socket 168N1, AMI 486 CS4031, and an i486 DX at 25 megahertz. I do plan on making more videos in the future showing the upgrades that I did make incrementally to this machine and how I came by those parts. Just a little bit of an interesting story, let people know what happened in my earliest parts of my computing career, I guess we'll call it. This motherboard did have a Cirrus Logic GD5426 card and 1 megabyte of shared memory, or at least to start with. That did get upgraded later on, but that's for another video. For input, I had your standard Microsoft serial mouse. I also had a gamepad, but I have not played around with gamepads with 86box yet. So a future video down the line will most likely cover my own exploration, setup, and usage of it. That serial mouse, we're going to leave it on COM1, and it was a standard 2-button mouse. I was lucky enough to start out with a Sound Blaster 16. I believe my grandfather got that for me for Christmas. I think. I honestly cannot remember. I try to remember. Now, one thing I will tell you, if you're following along, if you notice any weird sounds with your audio playback, uncheck this option, Float 32 Sound. I haven't run into any problems, but then again, the system that I'm running on, which will be in the description below, is able to handle everything that I've thrown at it so far with this. I leave the synth driver on nuked. I like it. At the time, I only had a dial-up modem, and 86box does not emulate that. However, a future video, I'll show how to set up a network card so that you can access BBS services that are still running today. For COM ports, we did have one on parallel. I had a dot matrix printer, so what we want to do here is select the option for generic PostScript printer. That way, whenever you do print something in a guest operating system, it'll go into a folder, generally under printer, of a PostScript file that you can either view or print off on your real printer. I've been told you can pass through these things, but I currently do not have a printer, and I haven't had one to try with 86 box in the first place. That might happen in the future once I do get a printer, because I do need to get one. And like I said, for storage controllers, my motherboard did not have an onboard IDE controller. I actually had a separate card, and it was just a standard dual channel IDE controller. So the PCAT IDE controller, dual channel, good to pick. And then the floppy drive controller that was on the board, so we select that as internal device. Now the first hard disk that I had with this computer was just a simple 80 megabyte drive. So we're going to create a hard drive here, and give it a name. I like to set mine to fixed size. If you choose an option like dynamic, then that just means that the file will be small and grow as you add more data to your image file. We're going to set it on the first channel in the primary slot, so 0, 0. And since we are emulating as much as we can to keep as much compatibility as we can, I'm going to drop down the speed to 4,500 RPM. It's so long ago, I don't remember the exact speed of that drive. I do know that it was pretty low. It might have been a 3600, I really don't remember. Now you can either choose your size. If you put it in manually, the cylinders, heads, and sectors will change for you. Otherwise, under the type drop down here, you can choose the common drive geometries that were around at the time. But we're building an 80 megabyte drive at the moment. A future video, when I go through how I upgraded the machine, will show how I obtained a larger hard drive and how I transferred my data. And when you click OK, you'll be told, remember to partition and format your newly created drive. Well, that's part of the install of DOS. It'll do it for us. Under the floppy section, my primary floppy was a 1.4 megabyte, 3.5-inch disk drive. Just for faster access times, I turn on the turbo timings. Excuse me. If you have problems reading your images, you might want to come in here and change one of these. And for the secondary floppy drive, I did have access to both media, so a 1.2 megabyte, 5.25-inch drive. I also had a CD-ROM. It came with the sound card, I believe, and it was only at a 2x speed. Fast enough to play the games that I was playing at the time. I was happy with it. So, that's pretty much it for the setup. Go ahead and click on OK. Save our settings. And let's go into the BIOS. Go ahead and press F1. If that would stop happening. There we go. And then go to auto detect hard disk. It should pick up your drive rather easily. Y for yes. That looks good. You can either sit here and wait forever for it to fail. Since ATAPI is not exactly IDE, it doesn't know how to read it. Later BIOSes will see it. But for now, just go on ahead and escape. And then Y for yes. And then go to standard CMOS setup. And let's change our floppy drives to resemble the settings that we had there. Date and time should automatically be picked if you chose the local time option during the setup. There is nothing else we need to change. So hit escape. And then go to, I don't think it's here. Yeah, advanced CMOS setup. Go down to the boot up sequence and hit page down to do A, then C. We don't need to make any other changes, so hit escape and then choose write to CMOS and exit. Yes. Now when the machine reboots, like it says, it has nothing to boot from. So, if you've downloaded all the floppy images that were in the description and unarchived them, the first disk you're going to want to mount is an existing image. And go to where you downloaded everything. And then go to Microsoft MS-DOS 622, choose the first floppy, let it mount and hit enter or any key. And it should boot into the floppy and into the setup. Alright, you can read this all you want. All you need to know is just hit enter to go to the next screen. Choose configure unallocated disk space. Enter. Yeah, keep the floppy in the drive and just hit enter. One thing we're going to change real quick, go to view, specify dimensions, and 1024 by 768. I like to lock it. Go back to view again. Force 4:3 aspect ratio. My computer at the time had a 17-inch monitor at 1024 by 768. My graphics card could also display at that rate, so this is pretty representative of what you're going to see. You can always hit the Control and Alt key and page up to maximize the window, and it should keep the ratio. Control Alt page down does that. We just let it finish formatting, and it should ask for disk 2 here in a moment. Actually, it'll just start copying from disk 1 first. My apologies. Okay. Date and time still correct. Keyboard, country layout, all that's correct. Enter. Settings are correct. I always leave this alone. I've never changed it. And now it'll copy some files. I will time-lapse this and come back when something interesting happens or it's requiring the next step. Alright, here we go. Going ahead and go back to existing image again and select your second floppy and hit enter. And once again, I'll time lapse until something interesting happens or it's the next step. Alright, pretty much done with that part, so go ahead and eject the floppy, hit enter, tells you that it's done, how to get help, enter. It should reboot and go straight into our new DOS environment, right off the hard drive. Okay, alright, now, next step. So we're going to install a mouse driver. Included is the floppy image for the Microsoft mouse driver, so go on ahead and mount an existing image. Microsoft Mouse 9.0. Go on ahead and do that. enter gets you into the A drive. dir will list your files. And our files take up more than one page, so what you can do is dir space /w, and that'll break it up into columns in a wider format so you can see what's on the floppy. All your programs and drivers and things usually come with a setup or an install file. If you can see it, there is a setup.exe. So type in setup or setup.exe, both will work, and hit enter. Okay. You can pause for a second to read that if you want, but really all you need to do is just hit C to continue. Don't worry about the licensing stuff. Dead and over with. Hit C to continue again. And this is where we get to tell it how to install. If you hit the tab key a couple of times, it lets you go through the different parts of the screen. But I leave it at MS-DOS only, and hit tab until the directory option is active. I like to keep my files organized, so I delete what's here, and I put drv for driver, /mouse. That is the directory it's going to install to, and hit enter. S for setup. What I like to do is hit the tab key and put an X next to add mouse path to your autoexec.bat. That way any games that need to know where your mouse driver is, it can find it easily. But yeah, if all that looks good, go on ahead and tab until you have the OK option highlighted again, hit enter, and let it copy the files to the hard drive. This will take a second. Okay, would you like to run the mouse manager? I'm going to show you what it looks like. We're not really going to do much with it, but if you hit Y, it'll take a second and it should load this up. It'll allow you to change the sensitivity of your X and Y axis. It'll also let you change acceleration. If you click on buttons, it'll allow you to change the left and right buttons. But if you capture the mouse, click on the screen, you can see that the mouse is moving around and doing what it's supposed to do. You can change the size of the pointer if you wanted to. But yeah, I don't normally do anything in here. I just go and click on OK. Your mouse is no longer controlling anything, so hit R for restart. And it tells you to remove the floppy, so set your mouse free. And then eject your floppy and hit enter. Now another reason why I'm having you use this installer is just to make things easier on yourself. A lot of these driver programs will modify 2 files on your system that are kind of important. On the root directory of your hard drive, there should be a config.sys and an autoexec.bat. There is an autoexec.back here because it made a backup of your original file when it made changes. We don't really need it, so del wildcard.back should delete every file with the extension BAK. Since we're in here, let's take a look at it real quick. If you go to edit config.sys, enter. This is the contents of your config.sys file. This loads your device drivers. And and defines certain parts of the operating system and how they should work. If you go to edit autoexec.bat, this is what lists the startup programs, TSRs, or terminate stay ready programs, things that run in the background often. DOS is not exactly a true multitask operating system, but some of the stuff stays in memory and gets triggered whenever certain events make things happen. Now, I like to rearrange this file because this is also going to come into play a little bit later when we get into optimizations. You usually want to have programs, drivers, and things like that load the largest in-memory footprint first. That way you can have larger continuous free space. That doesn't make sense at the moment. It will later. But again, it's just stuff I like to change that also works with the way that I do my computing and stuff. But I'm generally moving a lot of this stuff to the top. Excuse me, setting paths and defining certain variables and directories. And I like to add a few more and make changes where they are needed, at least what I think they're needed to be, and change the case of some stuff because it annoys me. There we go. Go to mouse.exe. Alright, that looks good, so save and exit. Since we made a change, let's go on ahead and reboot and make sure that we didn't break anything. Okay. The next thing I'm going to have you do, we're going to do this every step of the way. We want as much conventional memory as possible for our programs. Every driver and every program that loads on startup eats away at that 640K. There will be games you run across that will say you do not have enough memory, and then you're wondering why you set up a computer with 16 megabytes of memory and it's still complaining. Well, it's that original 640K of memory that gets used up, and you want to try and move everything out of it as much as possible. One of the first things you can do in optimizing your memory is replacing certain drivers and programs with more efficient and lower footprint files. Again, in the description is the links to all the floppy disks that I have set up, and one of them is a driver and DOS enhancement floppy. Let's go on ahead and mount that real quick. Okay, and then go to enter, list everything here. And you'll see there's a folder or directory called mouse. Let's go on ahead and go in there. CD for change directory, space, mouse, enter will get you in. Again, let's go on ahead and list what's there. This is what's called Qt Mouse. It is a replacement driver for the mouse driver that comes from the Microsoft floppy. It takes a whole lot less space and is highly compatible. I like to use it a lot, and it frees up a good amount of memory. So let's go on ahead, do our first bit of optimization while we're here. Go on ahead and type in copy ctmouse.exe space c:\drv\mouse, enter. Okay, if you go c:\enter, you can go on ahead and check to make sure that it actually made its way there. So cd-drv, enter. Okay, CD mouse, enter, dir, and there it is, CT mouse. Now this is free software, excuse me. The only requirement is during distribution that the source gets distributed with it. That's why there was another folder under CT mouse, or under the mouse folder of CT mouse, that has the source and documentation from the original developer. But let's go on ahead and CD, period, enter. Goes back one directory, CD, period, enter. Back another directory. We are now at the root of the C drive. Another way to get here would have just been to go CD space backslash, and it'll get you to the same place. So let's go on ahead and edit our autoexec.bat file. We want to change something here. The second to last line where it's talking about the mouse. Go on ahead and change this to ctmouse.exe and get rid of the /q or switch q. Go on ahead and save and then exit. Again, go on ahead and restart since we made a change. Don't forget to eject your floppy. And it should still load a mouse driver. Yep, there we go. Cute Mouse version 2, Alpha 4. Okay, so we got a mouse driver installed. Now we want to get a CD-ROM driver installed. So pretty much the same steps. What you want to do is go on ahead and mount an existing image and look for the GoldStar LG CD-ROM floppy. Let that mount. And again, enter. List the A drive. And there it is right there, install.exe. So install, enter. Now this, you'll be able to use your mouse while you navigate this. So what you'll probably most needing to be doing on 86 bucks to get your mouse to work is click anywhere on the screen and it'll capture the mouse. If you're on Linux, F8 and F12 together will release your mouse so that you can do other things. Now, keeping in line with what I like doing in organizing my files, excuse me, go to CDRV /CD-ROM. Oh. Yep, okay. I hit two keys at the same time. Now again, I'm having you use these installers because it's a lot easier than manually copying files and editing things. Now if we go to C and list our files again, you'll notice it did not make backups of our stuff. That's fine. Anytime there's an edit to your startup files, I always go and take a look at it just to make sure that nothing unwanted gets put in. It also allows you to organize things a little bit. White space doesn't hurt the startup files, but again, for organizational purposes, I like to keep it that way, where there's no unnecessary white space. And it looks like it gave us, this is the line for our device driver. And basically what it's telling DOS to do is to load it as high. Basically take it out of conventional memory if it can. That's what highmem.sys is for. It also added a line for last drive. This tells DOS that this is the last drive letter available to any attached devices that require one. So we made a slight change, might as well save it and exit anyway, and let's take a look at autoexec.bat. The reason being is that config.sys loaded the driver, Now we need the Microsoft CD extensions to actually load to do anything with the CD-ROM. So here it is. In fact, I'm going to go on ahead and fix an annoyance there. And then it's got the device name. This is the same as it was in config.sys. As long as these match, it should work just fine. You have multiple names you can use in case you have multiple optical drives. This can help you keep them organized in what they do. Like, I had a friend who had a DOS machine who also had a DVD drive. Yeah, he loaded multiple drivers to get it to get to use both of them at the same time if he needed. Alright, so that's it. Go on ahead and you can save it if you made a change and exit. Now the same thing with the mouse driver. We're going to replace some of these files that we just looked at. So again, go on ahead and mount that DOS driver and DOS enhancement floppy that I put together. Go back to the A drive and list everything. And you'll see one labeled CD-ROM. So CD-ROM, enter. dir. We only want a couple of files out of here. The rest are for future videos or something you can play around with, like the XDVD2 is a low memory footprint DVD driver. But we're not going to deal with DVDs, at least not in these example videos. Well, pretty much any of the example videos that deal with Windows 3.1 and DOS, because I didn't get a DVD-ROM drive until, geez, I think, yeah, Windows XP. I think that's the first time I ever had a DVD drive in my computer. Alright, but what we want to do is go on ahead and copy mschine.exe to c:/drv CD-ROM. This will replace the file that's in there. This is a newer version, and it comes from the Windows 98 install CD. And then we're going to copy vide cdd.sys to the same location, c:/drv/CD-ROM, enter. Okay, since we're here, we're going to make a couple of other replacements. So if you notice, there's a folder here called Replacer. Go on ahead and go in there. These are some of the files that I use. So with DOS comes a program called doskey.com. It allows you to recall the last command you used in the command line. It has a bunch of other options or a bunch of other things you can use, but I rarely use it for anything else. This also takes up less memory than the one that comes with DOS. So we're going to go on ahead and copy that into our DOS directory. Yes. Now you'll also notice there's an emm386.exe and a himem.sys file. Those two you saw in the config.sys. These come from the Windows 98 install CD as well. They are newer versions and more efficient, so I like to use them. We're going to go on ahead and copy those two files to the same place that we copied the DOS key file to. Yes, it's okay to overwrite it. I'm going to do the same thing for himem. And there are some games I play that are text-based games that require the ANSI driver installed. So we're going to use this one, NANSI. Again, this is free, and it takes up less space than the one that comes with DOS. So we're just going to copy it into the same folder that we have DOS in. It's not going to overwrite anything because the original file is just ANSI. And that's all we're going to need from this floppy at the moment. There is a NIC for a NE2000 network driver. I'm going to cover that in a future video, getting DOS online so that you can use BBSs and stuff like that. So you might want to hold on to this file, or I'll just make sure to keep the link to it in the description of a future video that it's going to be in. Alright, so we have a few things that we want to do before we reboot. We got some files copied that we haven't seen before, and we got a new CD-ROM driver. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go edit, config.sys. Oops. Okay. Alright. Go to your line that has the CD-ROM driver here, and we're going to change this part from just CD-ROM to VIDE-CDE and get rid of the switch V at the end. And that should be all for that part. Go to the next line, type in device equals C:\DOS /NANSI.sys. Again, the ANSI.sys driver is for text-based stuff. Like I said, there's a handful of games I use that requires some kind of character control on the screen. And yeah, this works perfectly. There's nothing else we need to change at the moment, so going ahead and save and exit. We are then going to edit the autoexec.bat file. And we don't need to change anything here. But what we do want to do is add in a new line at the end for C:\DOS/DOSKey.com. Save, exit. And let's go on ahead and eject all our floppies and reboot. Make sure that we don't get any kind of errors. And it looks like we did good. No errors. And like I said, DOS key lets you recall your most previous command. Just hit the up arrow key and it should bring it back. There's other things you can do with it, but I haven't personally not explored them all. But yeah, on to the next step. The next thing we want to do is get our sound installed. So going ahead and mount the floppy under the folder that says Sound Blaster 16 ASP. Grab the first floppy, go to A:\enter, list our files, and it looks like it has an install.exe, so do that, install, enter. Alright, you can pause for a sec to read that if you'd like, but it's just talking about caching programs and how you might have problems with them or whatever, but we're not. Go on ahead and just hit enter. Choose begin installation. And that's the drive we want it on, so hit enter. The directory will be created. Yep, go on ahead and hit enter. It'll copy the files it needs. Okay. Let's get our second disc in there. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, I keep choosing the option write protected because I don't want to accidentally change or delete anything on my floppies. It's the same as putting a floppy in a drive with the write protect switch turned on. Alright, and it's telling us that it's going to add in some environment variables and stuff. Hit enter. We did not change anything about our sound card, but if you need to double check your settings, you can go up to settings, and then go to sound, and then configure. These are your addresses and IRQ settings. You can keep those in mind. The software must match what's there or else it will break. If you're not making any changes and you're here just to double check what you selected to begin with, just go on ahead and hit cancel and then cancel again. If you hit OK, it'll force the machine to restart and you'll have to do the install all over again. But yeah, all that works. That looks like it's supposed to, so hit yes. C, enter. Okay. Those are the changes it's going to make. So press enter to continue. We don't have Windows installed, so just press the escape key and press enter again. And we're done. Go ahead and go to exit and enter. Don't forget to reboot. Go on ahead and eject your floppy. And I believe that's all we're going to be doing anymore. So just double check. Let's take a look at our config.sys file and see what's in it. Just make sure you go back to your C drive first. Gotta fail a few times. Oh, come on, really? Fail, C, colon. That's better. Config.sys. Alright, so it looks like it added something at the end here. That's our ASP driver. Okay. Exit out of that. Let's go to our autoexec.bat file. And those are the changes it made. Now again, I like to keep things organized in my own way, so I'm going to move those lines down to here. That looks like a good spot. Okay. All right. We have one last thing to do before we do our final reboot. I'm going to go on ahead and get rid of any optimizations that it thinks that we need. All CD-ROM drivers work better when they're in high memory, but I'm going to let a little program set this up for us. So I'm going to delete everything at the beginning here. Save and then exit. And the same thing, we're going to go to config.sys and edit that. And we're going to push this driver back down. There we go. Okay, save and then exit. Now there's a little program that comes with DOS to give you a little bit of information about your system. If you type in MEM, it'll tell you how much free conventional memory you have, how much upper memory, reserved, and extended memory that you have. We're going to go on ahead and free up even more than that 543K. 543 is definitely not enough for many games I know of. I believe Dune needs 553. And so does Hocus Pocus. But anyway, So to free up even more memory and optimize our system, go on ahead and type in the command memmaker. Yes, you could do a lot of this manually, but really this tool is the best you're going to get. Even people who've been running DOS for a very long time will always suggest this as your first step in optimizing your memory. So go on ahead and run that. Enter to continue. Space to go to custom. Enter. Yes, we want expanded memory, so hit space for yes. Yes, we want to scan memory area aggressively. Optimize for Windows? No, because we don't have Windows installed. That'll happen in another video. Use the monochrome region for running programs? Yes, that'll give us even more memory. We don't have any inclusions or exclusions, but we're going to go ahead and choose no anyway. Move extended BIOS data from conventional to upper memory? Yes. All that looks good, so go on ahead and hit enter. Alright, it'll tell you what to do in case things don't work. This is only going to be a problem if you're on a real machine. But as long as you're following what I'm having you do here, there shouldn't be a problem on reboot. But it basically just tells you to restart the computer. It'll recognize it didn't finish it and restore your startup files back to the way they were before it made any changes. So go on ahead and hit enter. It'll do its thing and reboot. Okay, no errors. Makes its calculations. Makes its changes. Has you reboot one more time. Yeah, we didn't see any errors during the boot up, so everything seems to be working. Hit enter. And it'll show you the changes. Before, we had 556 conventional memory free. Afterward, we have 630.9 or 0.8. That's a pretty good change. Go on ahead and hit enter to continue. List your files. We're going to do some cleanups, so delete all files with the extension b-k. And there we go. You now have a computer that is set up and ready to play DOS games with as much conventional memory as you can get your hands on. In a future video, I'll show you how to install a DOS game or two. We're going to install a DOS game from floppy image. We're going to install a DOS game from CD image. And we'll also show you how to import games that are already installed, like the zip files that you'll find along the internet on different abandonware sites. But yeah, that's pretty much all you need. Again, if you need any help, just leave a message in the comments below. I'll get back to them as soon as I can. And the next video will be up as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.